Hi all, today we're going to paint this beautiful pink field, and I pulled my reference photo from Pexels. They're a great place to look and to get free pictures. So whenever I start off my painting, I wet it down really well. I wet my paper down. I have Arches 140-pound paper, and you can see me brushing. Now this is a sped up version, and it does go quite fast, but what I did was wet down my paper for a few minutes, for about, I'd say about 4 minutes. Let that water really soak in, and then I began to move into laying down the light color for my sky. This is a very loose painting, and I tend to paint things kind of dark and with a ton of detail. So I'm working right now to try and train myself to loosen up. And I just want to be able to paint loose and to pull myself out of trying to paint photos. So here you see me laying down a little bit of that pink in the sky, and then I'm adding in that nice spring green with a little bit of yellow. And I know I have yellow ochre on my palette as well. So I add that in, and right now I'm adding a tiny bit of lavender in. This lavender color is going to soften up, and it's going to blend in with the water. You can see that I have some sheen on my paper. My paper is wet, so it's easy for me to add color on and let it spread out. Even that dark brush that I just put on, it's going to spread out. It's going to soften up. So another thing I'm doing right now is adding in some gray for shading. I'm just giving myself an idea of where some of the darker tones of the picture will be. It's kind of like giving myself clues and hints, so I know where I want to make sure I include some dark areas in my painting. Here I am laying down some of the flower heads or seed heads that I want to focus on and I want to emphasize. So I'm choosing to leave my background kind of blurred, and I want to see where I want certain grasses to pop or to really show up. So my paper has dried quite a bit, and I have a little tiny bit of water on this paper right now, and I'm using a very small thin brush in order for me to put these little dots on and just lay out where some of the flower heads are going to be. Okay, after I put that detail in of those little seed heads, I'm returning back to the middle ground. The middle ground, I would say, is about the middle of the paper, and this is where the flowers are behind these ones that I really want to pay attention. I've got certain ones popping out and you can see them right away. Well, I want some other ones behind there, but I want them soft. So when I let my paper dry, pretty much what's laid down, like that nice fine grass and those seed heads, those are going to stay. Even when I put a little bit of water on this middle section, so I can add a little bit of flower heads in there, I have it wet because I want the water to run. I want to be able to see the water not take too sharp of shape, but I want it to fade away. So I put water right in, smack on top of that grass and everything else, and then I added some of the pink colors in there so I could build some depth in it. And that's what I'm doing right now, is layering in some of the colors that I saw in the photo and layering in some of the other seed head that's behind everything. So don't be afraid to paint something as sharp as I did with that grass. Let it dry completely, and then go ahead and put some water on it and start to add in this soft background. I'm finishing up the first section of my painting. I've worked with it, let it dry a little bit, and I know that I've got to have some nice dark tones somewhere in order for this paper or this painting to stand out. Usually you need to have 1/3 dark or 1/3 light. That's about the ratios, 1/3 to 2/3. And so I kind of broke that in this painting, but you can see I'm adding in some neutral color. This is Holbein watercolor paints, and this is a neutral that I'm adding in inside of the lower part of the field. I'm trying to build a little bit of depth inside of this picture. So as I'm moving to a close on this first section, I'm just doing a wet on wet. You can see that when I make those brush strokes, they are not staying nice and fine like my other thin lines did. These are bleeding out. That's because it's wet on wet. I wet the sky, and I'm using a little bit of cerulean blue up at the top just to add a little bit more blue in this painting. I like the pink that I saw in the photo. For some reason I'm reaching for the sky. And when I'm doing this, again, I'm not worrying that I've already painted down flowers. I'm not going to ruin it because I wet my paper down earlier in a very deep way. I put paint on top, and now I'm just throwing a little bit of color on. And I brushed it at the top. You saw how I just laid that on there quickly. That was again wet on wet. And as I'm painting this grass down there, if you looked up towards the sky, there still is a sheen on it. That shininess or that sheen is because the paper is still wet. So I'm kind of looking and deciding what I want to finish up with. And as the paper has dried again, I really like it. I feel like it's come along pretty nicely. So I'm just going to take a look to decide what kind of final features I want to add in here. I'm making decisions right now on what I want to see from the picture. I'm looking at the photo, but I'm looking at my picture as well to decide what do I want to bring forward, what can I make stand out a little bit more. And so this last phase is where I fuss a little. I'm taking a look at what I feel it needs. I'm putting a white frame around it so I can see what the picture looks like inside of a frame. And sometimes I even snap a photo on my cell phone and I'll take a look at that. And I don't know why, but snapping a picture on my phone and looking at my painting that way too, it helps me see what else I need to do. If I'm stuck and I cannot see what I need to paint, I will throw it on the floor and I'll take a look at it. The other thing I'll do is I'll wait until the next morning. I might put the picture up and set it aside and then look at it the next day. And sometimes I find out that I like it. I struggle in overpainting, so I try to really harness myself and let myself stop before I just go crazy with detail. This picture, I'm still liking the softness of it. I like how it developed, and it was a miracle for me because I didn't overpaint it and make these super dark pinks, which I normally would do. I just kill a picture. We all have to learn. Don't be afraid to learn. I don't mind telling you what I struggle with and what I might goof up with. That's how I learned, was just by making mistakes, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. You can always use the other side of a piece of paper and paint on that, especially if you've got a good paper like this one is Arches 140-pound cold press. Cold press is wonderful. It's got some tooth on it or some ridges, so when you paint, sometimes you can get these really snazzy type of effects. I'll show you another time. And right now I'm just going to tell you I'm finishing up with this painting. See this white? I'm adding in white with a tiny bit of yellow, and this is gouache. So gouache is a different type of paint. It's not watercolor. It is water soluble, but it's, I don't know how to put it. It's not transparent. It's very opaque. So it's kind of final. And you can see some of those lines. You can see them really well. So I hope you had fun. Please press like and subscribe on my video to keep in touch. And I would love to see your work too. Follow me on Patreon, Cindy Williams More Artist. And I'm by the same name on Facebook and Instagram. And you can post your work up there and share it with me. I would love to see how you're doing, and tell me how I can help you. Tell me if there's something you're seeing I'm doing that I'm not explaining, and I'll do my best. All right, guys, hit subscribe, and you have a wonderful day.